The interrogation room was neither cruel nor kind. It was simply indifferent. A place designed by beings who understood utility better than they did comfort, with walls so pale they glowed slightly, like bone under moonlight. No chairs were offered to the prisoner, but she had found a way to sit anyway, legs crossed primly on the cold metal floor, as if she were attending a knitting circle back home. Her name was Agatha Bramble. Her cardigan was lilac with daisies embroidered along the sleeves, slightly tattered at the cuffs. She wore a pair of ancient tennis shoes and a wide-brimmed hat, as if the galactic chamber were just a sunlit porch. The armed guards watched her with the sort of amusement reserved for watching a house cat stalk a laser pointer. Harmless, ridiculous, and faintly entertaining. She smiled at them. Across from her, behind a sleek obsidian console pulsing with unreadable alien script, Commander Scriver of the Veltok Empire paced on his clawed limbs, tail slicing the air in agitated sweeps. His armor glimmered with awards. His reputation had crushed colonies. He had dismantled civilizations. And now he stood watching this soft, wrinkled Earth woman sip delicately from the small cup of alien tea she had insisted on brewing herself. "You requested beverage," Agatha chirped cheerily. "But I never trust people who can't make a decent pot. Diplomacy begins with tea, darling." Scriver narrowed 3 of his eyes at her. The 4th kept twitching toward the holographic feed behind him, Earth's vessel drifting in orbit, powerless, its crew supposedly detained or dead. This one had simply been found wandering the lower decks, humming and tapping the walls with a brass spoon. "We do not entertain predators with herbal rituals," he hissed. Agatha raised a brow. "Predators, you say? Oh my. Well, that's flattering. But I do hope you're not projecting." He bared his teeth, each serrated like shards of volcanic glass. "We are the apex of this galaxy. You should be weeping in submission, not seasoning leaves. And yet here you are, speaking to me." She gave the cup a dainty swirl, the ceramic clinking against her wedding ring. "Tell me, Commander, do apex predators usually hold committee meetings about their prey?" Behind Scriver, the gelatinous mass, known as Purpuro, fluttered with amusement. A drog, translucent and bioluminescent, he vibrated through tones of color that translated through his floating translator node. "She speaks in curiosities. I find her delightful. May we keep her?" Scriver hissed. "She's dangerous." "She's knitting," said Purpuro, gesturing with one of his tendrils toward the half-formed scarf in Agatha's lap. "She is what your kind would call grandmaternal." "Oh, I wouldn't knit while nervous," Agatha said, looping another row. "This is more of a countdown, really." A long pause filled the room. Glyph, the silent tenor observer in the corner, adjusted the lens over his singular eye and said nothing, as he always did. He had not moved in hours. If he breathed, no one knew how. Scriver, pacing more rapidly now, struck a console with one claw. "Speak plainly, Earthling. Why were you aboard a classified Veltok war carrier? How did you get past our early detection sensors?" "Well, I wasn't smuggled in a pie, dear," she said, "though I once did that to surprise a lover. A very nice 4th Minister of Cassius. Always said Earth baking was a war crime." "Speak plainly." "Oh, but I am," she said sweetly. "The trouble is, you're listening with ears designed to hear only roars. You don't know what a whisper can do." Scriver leaned forward, voice low and trembling. "You are here under false pretense. Your species is quarantined to trade districts. You violated over 16 interstellar codes. Well now, who hasn't broken a few rules on vacation? I once used the wrong fork during a Martian banquet and started a blood feud. Got an apology fruit basket, though. Earth's last diplomat was killed for violating border protocols," Scriver growled. "Oh, we know. That's why I volunteered." She smiled again, this time with something behind it, something like the coiled calm of a loaded spring. Purpuro's bioluminescence dimmed. "She volunteered to be captured?" "No," said Agatha gently, placing her teacup down. "I volunteered to be underestimated." A moment passed, the kind of moment where space itself seems to hesitate. Commander Scriver pressed his palm against the wall interface, summoning a tactical feed. "You will explain how Earth tampered with our signal array." "I will." She seemed surprised. "Oh, well, I suppose. If you ask nicely. You are not in command here." "Oh, darling," she said, rising with the slow grace of someone with every reason to move exactly when she chooses. "No one's in command yet. This is the part where we pretend we have options." Scriver's tail froze mid-swish. "What game are you playing?" She stepped toward him, cardigan fluttering faintly. "You know, when I was little, I watched my uncle trap a fox. Took days. Not with weapons. With patience. He didn't chase it. He simply left food closer and closer to the cage, until one day, the fox walked in of its own accord." She stopped a few paces from him. She was barely 5 feet tall. He was 9, if you counted his tail. "The mistake wasn't that the fox got caught," she said softly. "The mistake was thinking the cage was the trap." Scriver's claws tensed. She smiled again. Not kindly this time. Not cruelly either. Just knowing. The real trap, you see, was letting the fox learn what you smell like. A siren blared, high and sharp, like a signal torn from the throat of the ship itself. The lights flickered. A rumble ran through the floor. Glyph, silent no more, clicked his mandibles once. "They're in the hull," he said. "What?" Scriver snapped. "Who?" The feed behind him changed, Earthlings. A team of 6 in coveralls and hard hats, standing atop a Veltok cruiser like contractors inspecting a faulty roof. One of them waved. They carried no visible weapons. Only tools. Welding kits. Dismantlers. Cords. A caption at the bottom read, "Phase 2 engaged. Subsystem repossession." Scriver's claws dug into the console. Purpuro shimmered violet. "Oh my! I believe I have misjudged their knitting skills." Agatha adjusted her hat. "You see, we're very good at looking harmless. It's our superpower. Smile and nod. Ask polite questions. And then we pull." Scriver was still staring at the screen when the feed jumped to another image. An engine core. Dark. Silent. Missing. "How?" he whispered. "You told us we were prey," Agatha said gently. "So we let you build the teeth. We just built the scissors." The commander rounded on her, rage and panic boiling into one. "We will retaliate. You cannot win a war against an empire." "Oh, sweetie," she said, pity in her voice now. "We don't start wars. We end food chains." He stepped toward her, claws raised, and stopped. A dozen red dots blinked onto his body. Glyph, Purpuro, the guards, each of them was marked. A new feed appeared. Human vessels. Not military class. Freight class. The kind no one ever bothered to scan too hard. Each one drifting harmlessly above key Veltok worlds. Inside them, rows of power-neutralized drone swarms. Agatha bent, picked up her tea, and took a long, slow sip. "Well," she said, "shall we continue this diplomatic discussion?" No one answered. Even the walls seemed quieter now. The Veltok commander's tail dropped limp. Purpuro drifted a little farther back. Glyph blinked. Agatha Bramble smoothed her skirt and resumed knitting. "I find," she said, her voice soft again, "that things unravel on their own when you pull the right thread." And the scarf in her lap grew 1 stitch longer. Purpuro was the first to speak after the silence had dragged on too long. "Is it a metaphor?" he asked hesitantly, the hues running down his gelatinous form uncertain, pale purples sliding into sickly green. "The scarf, I mean?" Agatha Bramble didn't look up from her knitting. The needles clicked softly, the rhythm unchanging, the pace unhurried. "Metaphors are luxury items, dear," she said. "I'm not here to be poetic. I'm here to be patient. And dangerous." Scriver had not moved since the red dots vanished. His claws hovered uselessly over the console, twitching. The room still carried the echo of the warning tones, now silenced. His ship's engines were not responding. His orders had gone unanswered. Command was not in command anymore. Glypha's mechanical eye adjusted silently as he continued observing. He'd stopped recording 3 minutes ago. Not because his recorder failed, but because no one in the tenor conclave would believe this anyway. Agatha's tone was gentle, but there was no softness left in it. Just calm control. I believe you asked earlier why I was aboard your ship, she said, adjusting the yarn on her lap. And you keep asking what we are. Scriver snapped at last. You're parasites. Deceptive, base creatures who cling to more powerful races, mimic them, and crawl your way upward. Agatha finally looked up. That's one theory, she replied mildly. Another is we adapt. We study. We wait. And when the time comes, we remind the galaxy why cornered prey is the most dangerous kind of animal. Purpuro vibrated with unease. You claim humanity is a cornered species. Darling, we're always cornered. It's our natural habitat. You ever tried living on Earth? We tamed hurricanes and invented caffeine just to survive our own mornings. She paused her knitting and leaned forward slightly, her smile softening as if she were about to share something precious, something personal. My grandmother once told me that humans never evolved to be the biggest or the fastest. We didn't have claws, fangs, scales, or venom. But we had two things, fear and fire. One to keep us running, the other to make sure we could come back and set the world alight. Scriver scoffed. Your stories are primitive. So were we, she agreed. That's what made us so good at evolving. Purpuro shifted colors again, this time to a deep, stormy gray. But your people now stand among stars. How did a prey species rise so high? It defies all evolutionary logic. Agatha chuckled, but it was not a light sound. It was a sound like weather gathering. You've been looking at us wrong, she said. You saw humans, and you saw prey pretending to be predator. But really, we're apex predators pretending to be civilized. Glyph blinked slowly. His metal talon clicked against the floor. You call us predators, she continued. But I want you to understand something very clearly. Predators hunt for need. Apex predators hunt for balance. Humans hunt for memory. She rose then, and her movements were slow, deliberate, not stiff, not hesitant. The air around her changed, like the sudden stillness before a bullet cracks the sky. Scriver watched her as though seeing her for the first time. Your empire, Commander, she said, was built on conquest. You call yourselves the peak, the final rung. But your ancestors. She smiled faintly. They were once prey too, and so they built weapons to forget that feeling. Humanity, we never forgot. We kept the ache. We turned it into strategy. Purpuro floated closer, almost reverently. But your species developed peace, he said. Democracies. Agreements. Surely that tamed your instinct. Agatha laughed, a soft, throaty sound. No, sweet boy. It gave us time. Peace isn't where you rest, it's where you plan. Scriver growled. If you were planning war, why wait until now? Because, she said, a good hunter waits until the herd has stopped running, until they believe they're safe. She took a step toward the central console and, without waiting for permission, laid her hand gently against the edge. A small buzz activated the panel. The screen blinked, and a map of the galactic quadrant unfolded. Glowing red pips marked Veltok military bases, planetary outposts, key communication nodes. One by one, those pips turned gray. Neutralized. Scriver stared. His breathing quickened. How? You gave us the infrastructure, Agatha said. You let us trade, study, observe your superiority. Every contract we signed was just another fox walking closer to the cage. And now, well. She turned from the console and looked each alien in the eye. We're inside. Purpuro's glow dimmed nearly to black. You infiltrated the entire Veltok Empire? Oh no, she said with mock modesty. Just the essential parts. Comm relays, fleet trajectories, ship design weaknesses, manufacturing nodes. You'd be surprised how often your kind leaves passwords taped under control panels. Scriver turned toward the exit. The doors didn't open. Locked. Are you here to destroy us? He asked, voice cracking beneath the weight of revelation. Agatha tilted her head. Would you destroy a wolf for being hungry? No, Commander. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to remind you what it feels like to be hunted. She stepped back and picked up her tea again, now only lukewarm. She grimaced. Terrible steep time. Purpuro, you must remind your cooks. 8 minutes is murder. Ah, yes, of course, Purpuro said, dazed. She took her seat again, the motion graceful, rehearsed. Glyph finally spoke, without looking at her. You did not come to win a war, he said. You came to prevent one. She nodded slowly. We came to send a message. Not to conquer, not to retaliate, not yet. Just to recalibrate expectations. Scriver slammed a claw against the console again, but no system responded. Not a beep. Not a hum. Humanity cannot maintain this deception forever, he snarled. No, Agatha said gently. But we won't need forever. Just long enough. Glyph adjusted his lens again. What are you? Agatha's smile returned, but it wasn't a smile of mirth. It was the smile of someone who had already seen the outcome, of someone who played chess with empires and knew the board had been flipped hours ago. We are the ones you taught to fear, she said. And we never stopped learning. A moment passed in silence again. The room had shifted in tone, not just in mood, but in atmosphere, like the gravity had changed. Scriver, who had once loomed like a beast in a cage, now looked cornered himself. Agatha turned to him with grandmotherly warmth, as if nothing had changed. Would you like to hear a story, Commander? She asked. I find they help in moments of adjustment. He didn't respond, but neither did he stop her. When I was a child, I read a tale about lions and hyenas. The lions had always ruled the grasslands. Proud, loud, terrifying. But one year, the rains came late. Food was scarce. The hyenas didn't fight the lions directly. They waited. They watched. They stole scraps. And when the lions were weak enough, the hyenas didn't roar. They swarmed. She looked at him meaningfully. I think we've had our dry season. And I think you've grown slow. Purpuro shuddered involuntarily. Outside the ship, invisible to the eye, a signal bounced across galaxies. It was not a declaration of war. It was a list of conditions. Humanity had risen. Not loudly, not violently, just strategically. Scriver finally slumped back, his tail coiled inward. And if we surrender? Agatha raised a brow. Then you live. And learn. And perhaps, one day you'll evolve. Purpuro whispered through color. And if we retaliate? She sipped her tea again, grimacing once more. Still awful. Then you learn what it's like to lose everything to something smaller, slower, and older than you expected. She placed the cup down and leaned back. I do hope it won't come to that. I quite liked your libraries. The silence that followed was not empty. It was the sound of realization. The section closed with Glyph muttering a single word. Human. And for the first time, it didn't sound like a species. It sounded like a warning. Scriver was breathing heavily now. Not the measured, disciplined cadence of a Veltok commander in control, but the instinctive respiration of a creature realizing the walls of its world had begun to close inward. Agatha Bramble watched him over the rim of her third cup of bitter alien tea. She had given up complaining about the flavor. Some things weren't meant to be improved, only endured. It's the little lies that become big problems, she said gently, fingers toying with the handle. Like saying Earth doesn't pose a threat, or assuming that kindness means weakness. Those lies build up, one thread after another, until they knot around your throat. Purpuro hovered lower now, his translucent body twitching subtly in colors that had no translation in any known language. He no longer spoke unless addressed. Glyph hadn't taken his eye off her for nearly half an hour. What do you want? Scriver rasped, finally. It wasn't a bark command or a bark threat. It was worse. It was the first question he'd asked as prey. Agatha tilted her head, considering. Oh, I don't know. A proper pastry would be nice. Some peace and quiet. Perhaps your full unconditional strategic withdrawal from soul-aligned sectors. The commander's mouth twitched. Impossible. Oh, I'm sure it feels that way. But then again, so did the notion of a grandmother hijacking a dreadnought. His eyes narrowed. You still haven't explained how your people got on board. Oh, that's simple. We read the instruction manual. She winked. Yours. Glypha's talon clicked softly on the floor again. A small tick, but now it echoed like thunder in the silent room. You're not warriors, Scriver said, as though the words might still matter. Your species breeds in comfort. You pollute your own skies. You distract yourselves with music, food, and sentiment. You are not made for conquest. Agatha folded her hands in her lap. We're not made for it. We perfected it in spite of ourselves. That's the difference. He snarled. I've always found it adorable, she added. How certain species confuse outward aggression for real power. Noise isn't strength. It's advertising. The console behind her pulsed with another feed. This time, an interior corridor. A maintenance team of humans, nonchalant, whistling. One was juggling a Veltok plasma detonator like it was a fruit. Another, a woman with a mop, leaned on her tool and said into the camera, All clean down here, Ms. Bramble. Agatha gave a small wave toward the feed. Thank you, Marcia. Don't forget the vent seals. Scriver made a sound somewhere between a choke and a growl. You're treating this like a game, he hissed. No, darling. I'm treating it like a lesson. You started the game. We're just changing the rules. He slammed a fist on the console again, then froze as the metal beneath his hand turned red. Not a warning light, but a marker. A target. A low tone beeped through the room. Glyph adjusted his stance. Targeting lock established, he said. His voice was always emotionless. Now it sounded like judgment. Scriver jerked his hand back. That's not possible. Oh, but it is, Agatha said. You see, while you were parading your might and muscles around, we were studying proximity range tolerances on Veltok Command X. It's a hobby, really. He stared at her. You're bluffing. She didn't answer. She didn't have to, because behind her, the feed changed again. This time to a single word, slowly scrolling across the screen in perfect galactic trade tongue. Polite retaliation engaged. What does that mean? Purpuro whispered. Agatha sighed. It means we didn't come for war, but we also didn't come unarmed. She reached into the side pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a small device the size of a brooch. It blinked softly. I've always liked redundancy, she said. This is a signal scrambler. Simple, charming. But it's also connected to a trigger system. What system? Scriver asked warily. She looked at him with an almost maternal sorrow. The one attached to your pride. Scriver spun toward the console and typed furiously. No response. No override. The feed displayed multiple fleet units, each one flashing manual override in progress. Human engineers aboard every critical vessel, dismantling engines, rerouting power, smiling like they were fixing leaky faucets. You don't understand what you're doing, he growled. Oh, but we do, she said. We're disrupting the chain. Yours. The one that ends in extermination and conquest. You thought we were scattered and primitive. And we are. That's why we're dangerous. Organized predators can be tracked. Chaos cannot. He paced now unmoored. You'll start a war across 10 sectors. Only if you choose to fight, Agatha said. We're offering you something rare. Glyph raised his head. What? A way out, she answered. Scriver laughed bitterly. A way out? From what? From humiliation. From extinction, she said, and the room stopped again. Purpuro dimmed. Glyph didn't blink. Scriver looked at her, and for the first time seemed to really see her. Not the cardigan, not the knitting, not the absurdity of her human presence. But the eyes. Steady. Focused. Calculated. They weren't the eyes of a diplomat. They were the eyes of something that survived winter. He sank onto one of the ledges lining the wall. I should kill you. You won't, Agatha said. Because deep down, you know I'm not the threat. I'm just the message. What's the real threat then? Purpuro asked softly. She nodded toward the feed. The people fixing your engines. Scriver looked up, and she let him sit in the silence for a long moment before she added, almost kindly. They're not soldiers. They're not generals. They're the people your empire never sees. Maintenance staff. Electricians. Sanitation. Teachers. Parents. Builders. You've been fighting warrior species for so long, you forgot what happens when ordinary people decide to fight back. You're bluffing, he said again, weaker now. Agatha looked sad. If only I were. Outside the ship, invisible to naked sensors, cloak transports began deploying. Not with troops. With logistics teams. Not for attack. For extraction. The kind of quiet mobilization that didn't trigger alarms until it was far too late. "You don't understand humans," she said finally. "You think we fight with armies. We fight with resolve. And you've given us a reason." Glyph leaned forward. "What are the terms?" Agatha smiled, but this time it was weary. Heavy. No invasions. No mining rights in Seoul or her colonies. Reparations for past incursions. And an apology. Scriver barked a laugh again. "You want us to beg?" "No," she said, rising again. "I want you to understand." She approached the console and touched it gently. A final feed opened. One not yet displayed. It was Earth. Blue, brilliant, rotating slowly in the dark. Below it, the bodies of a fallen Veltok incursion force. 37 ships. Flattened in orbit by automated defenses they hadn't believed could exist. "You missed that one," she said. "You called it a glitch. A statistical anomaly. You tried to hide it from your own archives." Scriver said nothing. Agatha turned to Purpuro. "We're not angry. Not yet. We're not seeking revenge. Not now. We're seeking clarity." Glyph nodded slowly. "Then we must choose." She looked at him. "Yes. And choose well. Because the next time, I might not bring tea." Scriver stood, shaking. Rage spent. Pride shattered. "What do you call this move?" he asked bitterly. She walked past him calmly, as the doors slid open for her for the first time. She paused. "It's called diplomacy," she said. "But we play it like chess. And checkmate doesn't need to shout." She walked out. The others followed, silent. Behind her, the screen still showed Earth. And somewhere deep in the ship, the sound of knitting needles paused, for the first time since she arrived. The Galactic Neutral Broadcast Channel, untouchable, ancient, and older than most empires, lit up without warning. Across star clusters and merchant lanes, from Senate chambers to shadow fleets, the feed blinked onto screens with a clarity no jamming array could silence. Even the empires at war paused mid-barrage as the broadcast hijacked every frequency, every data string. The screen showed a simple room. Clean. Pale. A single chair. In it sat Agatha Bramble. Her hands were folded politely over a book of crosswords. A cup of tea sat beside her, steam rising, the scent of something faintly cinnamon wafting from the feed. And then she spoke. "Hello, children," she said pleasantly, as if she were addressing a kindergarten rather than the apex powers of galactic civilization. "I'm sorry for the intrusion, but some of you left the back door open, and we humans do love a curious peek." 1,000 dignitaries opened mouths to protest. None spoke. None could. "I'd like to clear up a few misconceptions," she continued, voice warm as fresh bread, clear as thunder. "There's been a lot of talk over the centuries about what humans are, what we're capable of, whether we belong." Her smile deepened, just slightly. "I suppose you're wondering why an old woman is addressing you. Why not a general or a president?" She gestured off-camera with one wrinkled hand. "Because generals win wars, but grandmothers start bloodlines and protect them." The camera zoomed slightly. Her eyes filled the frame, now soft brown and ancient, but behind them something deeper, something older than stars. "Some of you laughed," she said, "when you captured me, when you mocked our primitive culture, our disorganized systems, our politics." The footage cut, briefly and perfectly timed, to Scriver, still seated in his command chamber, pale, defeated. The same aliens who once stood above humanity now watched themselves on galactic display. Agatha's voice rolled over the shame like silk on steel. "You called yourselves predators. You watched us like we were entertaining vermin, scavengers with delusions of grandeur. But I'm here to tell you a very simple truth." She leaned forward. No violence in her, just certainty. "You're not predators. You're competitors." The feed rippled slightly, then split. 2 screens. On one side, the footage of Veltok fleets, lights flickering out, reactors going cold, swarmed by unarmed human logistics teams in high-visibility vests and utility belts. On the other, coordinated shutdowns across alien supercomputers, sectors blacking out one after another. But we, she said softly now, are apex predators. In 1,000 imperial strongholds, generals stood frozen. Emperors hissed. Scholars gasped as centuries of assumptions shattered in 2 sentences. The camera returned to her face, and now her expression had changed. No longer the gentle grandmother. No longer the underestimated visitor. Now she wore what the old wolves wore when the pups thought the fight was over. A smile. An apex smile. "I'm not here to frighten you," she said. "I'm here to explain the new terms." There was no gloating, no demand of tribute, just a gentle flick of fingers as the camera cut to the second stage. Orbital footage of massive, semi-cloaked human vessels parked silently above major alien sectors, not warships, but mobile depots. Quiet, watching. Earth will not attack unless provoked. We will not conquer. We will not expand beyond our right. But if you come near our children again, our colonies, our kin, our travelers, you will not face fleets. The next visual cut was jarring. It showed 2 alien warships, hollowed and perfectly intact, recycled into floating human museums with new scaffolding, neon welcome signs, and tour guides explaining how not to invade Earth. Agatha continued without pause. You'll face mothers, mechanics, janitors, librarians, people who will politely dismantle your empire while offering you cookies and first aid. A shiver passed across the galaxy. In the command chamber, Purpuro watched the broadcast with wide, glistening eyes. "They made diplomacy into an ambush," he whispered. Glyph merely nodded once. "They didn't strike from above. They waited below." Back on the screen, Agatha sighed. "Some of you will try to retaliate," she said. "And you'll fail, because we've already played your games. You wrote rules in arrogance. We rewrote them in silence." The screen cut again, this time to a single, small alien child. Alone in a cage, being offered a sandwich by a smiling human. The words underneath, "This is what we fight for." "You see," Agatha said gently, "you don't understand our rage. Because you've never had to bury a child that wasn't yours and still defend them like they were." She paused then, not for effect, but for memory. "And we've buried too many." The silence was deeper than vacuum. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise, quiet and heavy as the pull of gravity. Then she stood, slowly, gracefully, and clasped her hands behind her back. "This is your chance," she said, "to start over, to stop seeing humans as chaos and start recognizing us as balance." The final image played. A sunrise over Earth. Not from orbit, but from ground level. People laughing, crying, repairing things, living. "This," she said, "is what Apex looks like." Then the feed cut. The silence that followed was not merely technological. It was cultural, civilizational. Empires didn't just lose dominance, they lost the illusion of invulnerability. In the Veltok chamber, Scriver stood. Or tried to. His legs failed halfway, and he sank back into his seat, staring at the blank screen like a prophet watching their faith collapse. Purpuro shimmered in silent reverence. Glyph finally spoke. And now, Agatha turned as the doors slid open again. Human engineers saluted her quietly. One handed her a thermos. She opened it, sniffed, smiled. "Chamomile," she said. "Proper steep time, too." Glyph stepped forward. "What do we tell our leaders?" She turned, sipping delicately. "Tell them they've met humanity's warning." Scriver's claws flexed, fists curling helplessly. "You think you can hold the galaxy with fear?" She looked at him with pity. "Fear? No. We'll hold it with reputation. And rumors. You'd be amazed what those can do when they're earned." He stared up at her one last time. "You were supposed to be weak." She looked down at him like a grandmother scolding a child who touched the stove. "We are. Until you make us remember we were never supposed to survive the Ice Age, and yet we did." With that, she turned and walked out. The chamber didn't feel like a war room anymore. It felt like a history exhibit. Outside, the human teams packed quietly. There were no weapons drawn, no orders barked, just clean exits, polite handshakes, and automated shuttles. The entire operation would leave no mark but memory. As Agatha boarded the vessel waiting for her, the Hearth and Fury, a technician offered her a seat near the viewport. She sat, exhaled. Her communicator pinged once. A voice old and warm came through. Operation completed. Agatha smiled. Message sent, she replied. And received. The stars blinked by. Earth turned beneath them, small and blue. And on every alien world watching, every system tuned to the broadcast, one word lingered longer than the rest. Human. Not a warning anymore. A declaration.